Hi everyone, I'm Tomas Kozelsky. I'm very pleased to be here. Thanks all the bunch of platform, especially Christina for managing us here. I welcome you to my presentation of a story we call rejuvenation. I'm not trying to be dramatic, it's just so hard to pronounce it well, so sorry about that. We are three partners in the studio. I'm not the most handsome or most beautiful one, sorry about that, but the other two were busy with more important events. Just kidding. Um, we're having two studios, one in Prague, one in Brno, both in Czech Republic. The guys in Prague, they sit outside. The guys in Brno, they have the office. They can go actually inside. And our main topic is city reuse. We are focusing, we started from adaptive reuse, starting from actually worn out, hibernating old buildings, and we were transforming them. But we grew bigger, bigger, and bigger, and suddenly it's not just the houses, it's the infrastructure. It's actually also the pieces or quarters of the cities. And we are basically expanding into the public space. So this is what we do. And today I would like to tell you a little story about like one building in Brno, which is the second biggest city in Czech Republic. It's a story about us finally growing into becoming a considered big architecture studio because they allowed us to play with this proper historical heritage. It's a building, it's a public spa by Bohuslav Fus, which is like the biggest trailblazer of functionalism in Czech Republic. And it all started in the 20s, last century, when there was a massive boom of fashion industry in Brno. It was like called the Moravian Manchester or like Central Europe Manchester. There was a plenty of companies producing a textile, and it was a period when a lot of people from villages started moving into the city. And for all these workers which were like looking for a work here, they had to build the houses. But at the time, the sewage system was not so developed. So all the houses they were building for these kind of poor people moving into the city, they were creating a micro-housing. It was basically a classic houses with the small apartments. And the approach was running through this kind of common balcony, which you're sharing with all the people living in the same floor. And the only toilets they were actually having at the time was the share one at the end of the balcony. And there was no showers, there was nothing like that. So what was important, in all of these kind of worker colonies, they were building this municipal public spa. We are saying a public spa, but it was a shared showers. 3 times a week, you just came here and you actually took a shower, you spend your time there, you enjoy some jacuzzi, the actual sauna and so on. And actually, this building was not only this kind of like a needed facility, they turned it into this kind of like a zone of a free time. So actually there was like 2 massive pools related with it. There was a kind of like a sunbathing rooftop where you could actually have some fun and people were really spending their time. But actually, a little bit about the history. The Brno was actually, it's the melting pot of functionalism in the Czech Republic. All the yellow dots are functionalist monuments. And here, 01, this is the kicking off element, which is Villa Tugendhat, built by Mies van der Rohe. And all the other buildings were kind of like a follow-up. But as you can see, which you might not because it's really tiny, all these functionalist projects are rather small in comparison with the spa that we're doing. It's a huge area. It is impacting everything around. And here is the city center, beautiful historical one. And the area around here, this is a huge development. It used to be an arm factory. They were producing weapons. It stopped working approximately 20 years ago, and now there is a huge development. There is one developer which is turning it into housing, offices, and basically a new quarter of a city. And the actual historical quality, like something that is quite interesting about the spa, is the fact that it's a member of a steampunk Art Deco, even though it's a functionalism. The Art Deco per se is like actually using the curvatures, and it allows you to actually appear like a a steamboat or a plane or something like that. But if you have a functionalism, it's all about the right angles. And it's very difficult to create a volume, a figure that kind of gives you the feeling of a streamline. But yet the building is the only one of nautical or streamline functionalist building that we have in Czech Republic. So that's putting a different level of the heritage protection on it. But times are changing. This is how the building looked after the revolution. We had, after the First World War, there came the era of socialism, and the municipal spa turned into kind of like a social facility working for whatever was needed. There was like some parts of hospitals. Every new user was kind of like transforming it. So the first lobby that you saw at the first picture, nicely open with beautiful windows and a greenery inside of them, turned into this kind of like hallways which were kind of giving you creeps. This is always a comparison of the same areas of like how it looks right now and how it was looking in the original design. The original design was absolutely ingenious. It was a social building. It was representative, but still a social building. So what you can see is all this kind of like linear windows which are way too high to see outside, and all the partitions which were also not reaching the ceilings. Why was that? Because at the time there was like super expensive to have the electrical installations, and those were just workers going to be washed there, right? So they were using the daylight to actually cover all the rooms inside, so they didn't have like separate ceilings, they had one common ceiling. And in the night, they used these few spotlights shining into the ceiling, and they managed to shine all these little rooms as the showers, so you didn't have to spend so much energy to keep this building running even in the night. This is in the ground floor. We are having like this really inbuilt pools, which were like working for massages, which actually, it seems like a small thing, but the fact that you have it in the ground floor and heritage protection is saying you cannot do absolutely nothing with these pools, they have to remain in the state they are, it's a big issue for any possible usage of the building. This is how you see that the advertising hit the main entrance towards the exterior pools. You don't see it much, but this kind of beautiful glazing turned into very cheap, looks very, these glass bricks which are now broken and dead pigeons are lying inside, very representative moment. Suddenly, like from just the spa become the city spa, and here you see it looks very, it's decaying and decaying for already quite some time, and this is the recent state. We've been there like not even a year ago, and as you can see, the ceilings are really kind of falling apart. The infrastructure is actually missing in there, and it's happening just because the owner is a city, and they're trying to change it. They had already more than 20 projects what to do with it, but every time the project lands on the table of a heritage protection or the monument care, they are saying, no, we are not permitting it because you are destroying the building. So the building is actually decaying by itself. So when we were addressed, we decided to have an approach that is going to recover the body of the building, but we realized that the first thing we have to start is recovering the soul, the original initial function of the building as it was. So this is actually our proposal, which is basically the same thing as there was at the beginning, and we just did a stratigraphy check to find out the original colors, because the black and white photos are giving you only black and white. But we actually managed to find that we have much more colors inside of the interior, and we start working on the rehabilitation of a building. But what was really the essence of a design in this project was the structure. We had the owner, which was a municipality. We had investor, who was the related developer, saying, guys, I cannot have this falling apart building right next to me. I'm willing to put as much money as you want into it to turn it into something, but I don't have, as a developer, the ability to run it. So you should look for some operator. That's the thing I cannot do. Then we know from the public opinion what people want that the building works as. They want to use it as a free time. The city actually determined the plan of mobility within the city as this being a free time center, but actually it doesn't work at all. And then we have the bad guys in the brackets behind it, and that's the heritage care and like heritage protection. We have two different departments. One is the big one, the country one, the Ministry of Culture, and the second one is the local one. So that was the situation we had, and everybody wanted something else. The city, of course, they focus on the design of the city image. The investor, he wants to have a financial return through rising the exclusivity of the area. People, public in general, they are like focusing on the extension of the city amenities, and the monument restoration is focusing on the monument restoration and the cultural gains. So these was all the things that we had to, yeah, put on the head of the operator, and we start like traveling the city and the country, and in the end we actually really managed to attract a chain which is making good wellness. And they were like, hey, yeah, the area is pretty good, we don't know if we fit inside of the building. And there starts the negotiations on like the rent, on the conditions, on the support, if everybody is like willing to contemplate on this kind of like having there a spa. And that took us like a half a year to actually design the operator, to tell him, yeah, you will use your portfolio, but not fully. You will sometimes also need to maybe bring there some doctors, because people might use it as a physiotherapy. There are two pools on the ground floor, so maybe like the pools can work as a massage. They're like, okay, we can think about it. So half a year just to convince them to come to the table. And in the end, we actually managed to bring all of these 5 actors together and present the project. So how we actually managed to convince the most important part, and it was the heritage protection, was, I'll just quickly jump through it all the way till this picture. And here what you see, this is the facade that we are like from the outside, having historical windows. I just, before this lecture, I had a chat there with Hungarian architects about the problems of insulating historical buildings. That was exactly what we were like told. You cannot touch the facade. The facade stays in the thickness as it is. The windows, metal frame windows, are going to stay the way they are. You need to kind of find a way how to use it. So we came with the idea to actually create the inbuilt part, which each of the sauna and each of this kind of facility we're putting inside is going to be set off from the actual facade. And actually that is a brilliant idea in relation towards this building, because this picture, I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but you had in 2 floors, you had next to each other like showers. Imagine a shower as such, just a 2 by 1 meter, a little door, little room, you enter inside, and then you have like the water coming from top and the water disappearing on the ground. So what do you need to make it run? You need this kind of like a horizontal ducts. And that's what you have here. This is the original image when you have the facade, and then you have 1.5 meter thick corridor, which is just filled with the horizontal piping that was collecting the water and taking it to the side. And we decided basically to really represent and kind of keep the idea of like having these horizontal ducts. We dedicate them to the greenery, because the climate in this kind of void in between is actually perfect for maintaining the greenery. And that's why there was these pictures. Sorry, the other direction. This is the quick, let's say, a logo or image of the idea, how we're like having the original facade, we are putting the inbuilts, and here was the idea of having the back part of the spa where you're having the greenery. We also did a check if actually the saunas are not going to be harming the plants behind. We were questioning if there is a good maintenance, so even like if we would have to have watering system, and the watering system actually leaks, it would not damage the rest of the facilities and so on. So that was the first step, and there was the moment when actually the heritage protection said, okay, that's a way how to go. This is the ground floor. This is a moment where you see the original images of the physiotherapy. That's exactly what we kept. We kind of like put again like the tables and the massage tables in the same positions, and we managed to kind of preserve and hold the pool. That's what I already showed you. And then we were actually trying to bring something new because like the wellness guys we were working with, they are like very much focused on exterior activities that you don't want to enjoy the spa only on the inside, but when you have views around, it's something that adds extra. So they ask us about making like exterior spas and jacuzzis. So we kind of focus on these natural elements, like these tiny natural pools, which are always related together, and we try to represent them on the roof. We had to follow the high levels of the roof, which was like the handrail. It was the attic of the roof. So that was for us kind of like the height limit. What you see, the red elements of the showers, that's a red element that you can find on the historical ladders which were kind of connecting the roofs. We were questioning if the woman there is politically correct, but we didn't found a picture of a guy which is actually showering and doesn't look like he's stripping, so in the end she won. And the last part, it was basically we're trying to activate like a dead sunbathing roof, which is not in a good shape anymore. But as you notice, all these functionalist metal elements, all these handrails were represented in this kind of like a red tube. So we turned the roof in this kind of like a activity roof, and we used the red tube. We just put there some climbing elements, a little playground for kids. We made there a yoga deck, and with all of this approach, we got agreement of all the parties, which is like super cool. They said, hey, you know what, we got it. The Heritage Protection said, if it's being done in this way, it's super cool, so we love it. But the problem is agreement is not money. So we have the agreement so far, but there was inflation, there was a COVID, all the story that's happening right now. And now we're just waiting for the moment when the developer is going to say, hey, we're back on track. We are selling the flats the way we wanted, so now we're ready to invest into it. But it might also never happen, so that's why we're having here as a unbuilt project. And here you see the picture. The blue part is the existing one. The red one is just possible extension of a future swimming pool, which is not from our studio. We would like to keep it without it. And here you see all these kind of like small interventions we did in the area. I didn't show all of them because it's for longer than for 20 minutes. And that's it. That's all about this little project of ours. And thank you for the focus.